He lived a life of outrageous luxury, mansions, yachts, parties, and more money than most could imagine. But behind the wild lifestyle was a massive scam that cheated investors out of millions. His name? Jordan Belfort, better known as the Wolf of Wall Street. In this video, we're uncovering the shocking story of how Belfort built his empire, the schemes that made him rich, and the scandal that brought it all crashing down. And trust me, the way he pulled it off will leave you stunned. Before we dive in, don't forget to like, subscribe, and tap the bell. Because in the world of Wall Street, the wildest success stories often hide the darkest secrets. The rise of Stratton Oakmont. Jordan Belfort started Stratton Oakmont in 1989 with just a handful of employees and a small Long Island office. What began as a legitimate penny stock brokerage quickly evolved into something far more sinister. Belfort recruited young, hungry salesmen from blue-collar backgrounds, many without college degrees or Wall Street experience. He promised them wealth beyond their wildest dreams, and for a time, he delivered. The firm's business model was deceptively simple, yet devastatingly effective. They would purchase large quantities of penny stocks at rock-bottom prices, then use high-pressure sales tactics to convince investors these worthless companies were the next big thing. Once the stock price was artificially inflated through their aggressive marketing, Belfort and his team would dump their shares, leaving investors with worthless paper. The pump and dump scheme. The heart of Belfort's operation was the classic pump and dump scheme, executed with military precision. His brokers would cold call potential victims, often targeting middle-class Americans with modest savings accounts. Using carefully crafted scripts, they would paint pictures of guaranteed returns and once-in-a-lifetime opportunities. These weren't casual conversations. They were calculated psychological warfare. Belfort trained his team to overcome every objection, to never take no for an answer, and to extract maximum investment from each victim. The boiler room atmosphere at Stratton Oakmont was intense, with brokers screaming into phones, celebrating each successful sale with drugs, alcohol, and outrageous displays of wealth. The scheme worked because it exploited basic human psychology. People wanted to believe they could get rich quick, and Belfort's charismatic salesmen made those dreams seem within reach. Meanwhile, the worthless stocks they were pushing would inevitably crash, wiping out investors' life savings while Belfort counted his profits. The lavish lifestyle and FBI investigation. As millions of dollars poured in from his fraudulent stock schemes, Jordan Belfort's lifestyle escalated to unprecedented levels of excess. He bought sprawling mansions on both coasts, filled his garages with fleets of exotic cars, and acquired a luxury yacht once owned by Coco Chanel. No expense was too extravagant, whether it was $2,000 bottles of champagne, private jets for weekend getaways, or wild parties dripping in drugs and debauchery. His offices at Stratton Oakmont became infamous for their culture of unchecked hedonism, where cocaine, quaaludes, and reckless behavior flowed as freely as the money. This flamboyant display of wealth and indulgence eventually drew the attention of federal investigators. To outsiders, Belfort appeared to be living the dream of a self-made Wall Street tycoon. But to regulators and the FBI, the signs of fraud were impossible to ignore. By the mid-1990s, agents were quietly piecing together a case. They traced suspicious stock trades, followed money trails hidden in offshore accounts, and listened to testimony from disillusioned investors who had been promised fortunes but ended up with nothing. What emerged was a picture of a highly organized criminal enterprise designed not to create wealth, but to strip it from hardworking Americans. As the investigation intensified, Belfort's paranoia began to take over. He started conducting business in whispers, using coded language, and surrounding himself with loyalists he thought he could control. Yet no matter how much he tried to conceal his tracks, his ego and insatiable appetite for luxury made disappearing impossible. The downfall and consequences. In 1999, Jordan Belfort's carefully constructed empire of lies finally came crashing down. After years of operating under the radar, federal agents arrested him on charges of securities fraud and money laundering, exposing the true scale of the pump and dump schemes that had enriched him and his inner circle while leaving thousands of ordinary investors in ruins. Faced with mountains of evidence, wiretaps, trading records, and witness testimony, Belfort realized that fighting the charges would almost certainly mean spending decades behind bars. To save himself, he struck a deal with prosecutors. In exchange for a lighter sentence, Belfort agreed to cooperate with investigators, providing detailed testimony that implicated many of his closest allies. His cooperation helped secure convictions against former colleagues, brokers, and even longtime friends. For many who had once idolized him as a charismatic leader promising wealth and success, his betrayal felt like a second blow. First, he had led them into criminal activity, and then he handed them over to authorities to reduce his own punishment. The outcome of the case was a harsh reminder of the human cost of white-collar crime. Belfort was sentenced to 4 years in federal prison, though he ultimately served just 22 months in a minimum security facility. More significantly, the court ordered him to pay $110 million in restitution to the victims of his schemes. Yet for thousands of families whose life savings had been wiped out, these repayments were little more than symbolic. Years later, only a fraction of the money has ever been returned. The financial devastation was staggering. Retirees who had trusted Belfort with their nest eggs found themselves forced back into the workforce. Parents who had carefully saved for their children's education discovered that college dreams were shattered. The aftermath and modern relevance. Today, Jordan Belfort has reinvented himself as a motivational speaker and sales trainer, traveling the world to deliver seminars on success, sales psychology, and entrepreneurship. Ironically, he now profits from the same charisma and persuasion techniques that once fueled his fraudulent empire. His life story was immortalized in Martin Scorsese's film, The Wolf of Wall Street, with Leonardo DiCaprio's portrayal cementing Belfort's image as both a cautionary tale and a cultural icon of excess. Yet while Belfort has managed to rebuild his brand, his victims have not been nearly as fortunate. Thousands of ordinary investors lost their life savings to his pump-and-dump schemes, and many never recovered financially or emotionally. Restitution payments have been slow, inconsistent, and in many cases, inadequate compared to the magnitude of their losses. The contrast between Belfort's continued fame and the ongoing suffering of his victims highlights the harsh reality of financial fraud. Behind every sensational story of corruption lies a trail of ruined lives, broken trust, and families burdened with financial hardship that often lasts for generations. From fast cars to federal prison, Jordan Belfort's story proves that greed always comes with a price. What part of his scam shocked you the most? Drop your answer in the comments. I'd love to hear your reaction. If you enjoyed this dive into Wall Street's darkest scandals, hit like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who loves financial drama. Until next time, stay curious, stay cautious, and never stop questioning the true cost of greed.